G'day there tankers, Dr. Ferd here. Welcome to episode 4 of Blitz Tactics. It's a series where we're looking at teamwork and gameplay rather than individual performance or the colour of one's stats. In this episode we have views from 3 tanks, all of which are low tier in a tier 8, tier 9 battle on Castilla. So the aspects of the match to be watching out for are the more defensive posture of playing low tier and the play calling that goes along with that situation. The team at the north spawn is lined up on the left, has 2 tier 9 heavies, a tier 9 object 704, tier 9 T54 and 3 heavy tanks at low tier at tier 8. The team at the south spawn has 2 tier 9 heavies and 2 tier 9 tank destroyers and 3 tier 8 heavy tanks. In the south, the rollout is called for the mill and the entire team proceeds in that direction, a fairly standard rollout. In the north it's slightly more complicated, with one heavy tank attempting a YOLO out to the west, though he responds to being called back into the pack. The IS-8 does patrol duty, getting to the top of the mill, spotting the entire southern team. At first contact, the teams are arrayed in this fashion. The north team may have an advantage of having more spots at that point, but they're comparatively more strung out in a line compared to the southern team, which is the advantage of being in a more dense formation and able to bring more guns to bear immediately upon the first contact. The key phases of the battle play out in the following pattern. A push by the north tanks along the base of the hill is repulsed by TDs and the southern tanks coming up. The southern team takes a classic too high, too low strategy on the hill, with a heavy and a TD taking each route, and the fight being either on the second tier of the hill or around the base of the hill. The retreating north medium, accompanied by a heavy and an aggressive TD, take up a defensive position on the backside of the hill. The remaining north heavies take up a position in cover in the B5 gap of the map, where they exchange fire with the southern heavies that have moved into the E5 section of the map to prevent movement of the north team in that direction. At a key point in the game, the southern Love and T34 flex left into the E5 section of the map, where they hold a key defensive position, freeing out the southern E75 to move toward the mill hill. The key lanes of fire in the match take place upon the top of the mill hill, at the base of the hill, and in the B5 to D5 corridor. On the left is the entire game as shown from the viewpoint of the north T34, and on the right are the 2 views from the southern team from the Love and from the T34. On rollout, the north team notices the IS-8 is moving in its own direction, requests they move back into the pack, and somewhat unusually for a public game gets a good response. And as the IS-8 north spots up from the mill hill, I've moved it back to real time. Both teams start moving and jockeying over where the fight's obviously going to be on the mill hill at this point. Initially the IS-8 on the north team is playing well, getting spots for his team without exposing himself to return fire, while the north T34 moves into a position to start getting shots on the E75 that's been spotted down near the river. The north IS-6 has moved aggressively in to engage, but is picked off, being in a crossfire position, and is the first casualty of the game. The north T34 is in a hold down defensive holding position and is able to get some shots in on the E75. The southern T34 is side-scraping off a rock while waiting for the northern IS-8 to expose itself as the southern push continues up the slope of the hill. The southern Love has recognised that he's not getting good shots in on and around the hill, so relocates toward the river area to help defend with the E75. As the northern team is forced off the hilltop, the southern T34's shot opportunities dry up, and so he eventually relocates to the river as well. The southern Love and E75 find themselves facing off against the northern T34 and IS-8. This corridor of the battle is all that we have footage for this part of the game, but at the same time there's a real intense firefight going on over at the hill. The southern T34 relocates over toward the river. The slugfest over the mill hill is starting to take effect, with the north 704 going down, and soon followed by the Tiger II, so that 2.5 minutes into the game the score's already 3-0. The IS-8 that had been the lead tank of the North gets one back by cleaning up the Jag Tiger as he came over the second level of the hill. And two simultaneous events occur at the riverbed that influence the outcome of the game. The Southeast 75 makes a break for the base of the hill, contributing his gun to that fight, while the Southern T-34 takes up a hold down position behind a rock, replacing the E-75 in the exchange along the river. Viewpoints we have of the game from these heavy tanks shows a lot of really hold down, defensive, dogged style of play, really showing crucial contributions to low tier play in this match. Sure, it's not medium carnage rolling around the battlefield like Rambo, but it's an essential part of the game. The fight over the hill is nearing its conclusion as the North IS-8 goes down. The North T-54 has had enough of that and moves across the hill in an attempt to get to the Southern Tiger II, but runs straight into the line of sight of the Southern T-34.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
And the score is 5-1, and a pincer movement moves in from both directions to clean up the last two Northern tanks. So let's have a quick post-game review of how this unfolded. The low-tier tanks we were following in this game didn't do a lot of damage on an individual level, but on either side blocked up routes that were otherwise intended for nefarious purposes. The current meta on this map, on the NA server at least, is still very much a mill hill fight. The Southern team in particular blocked crossfire opportunity of the Northern team as the Southern team came streaming around the two levels of the hill. This game highlights particularly solid low-tier play, with fantastic emphasis on maintaining hold down position and minimizing exposure of weak spots, communication between platoon members about where to focus and who to focus on, and the patient wearing down of the enemy team. The main fight was over the mill hill, and the footage we have doesn't really describe that in any great detail. That fight is essentially a 4-on-4 gun battle until the contribution of the low tier heavy tanks at the riverbed free up the Southern E-75 to go join in the firefight over the base of the mill, swinging the balance of power in that area of the battle. The main technical problem for the North team in this fight is that once positions had been established, it settled into a rather non-dynamic linear north-south engagement without any opportunities for crossfire situation. The North team never utilised its one great advantage in this matchup. Much of the outcome of the fight can be attributed to the underutilisation of the North's great strength, which was its medium T-54 tank. There was an opportunity to recognise that with its mobility it was likely to be the only tank to get to the town and the town road area north of the cap circle. If it had got to that area, there are strong hold down positions where its superior turret strength, it could have sat there and poured relentless fire into the tanks coming up from the south on both levels of the mill hill with a great degree of impunity. That may have had the effect of limiting their passage across that area, or at least causing substantial damage, so that the defenders on the northern side of the hill would have had a much easier chance of picking them off as they came around. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, but it's possible to imagine the North team would have had much more success if they'd set up with such a layout. Thank you for watching this episode of Blitz Tactics. Please like, share or comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's roll out. And remember, whatever you do, explode the potato, don't be the potato.